Most of us experience a highly specific type of exhaustion by the end of the day. You haven't lifted heavy weights or run a marathon, yet your mind feels entirely depleted. Psychologists identify this as decision fatigue. It is a sharp, measurable drop in cognitive performance that occurs independently of physical tiredness or baseline intelligence. We navigate an ecosystem designed to force constant, micro-level choices. Every notification, infinite scroll, and unread message demands a neural calculation. The human brain evolved to track seasonal changes, scarce resources, and physical threats in natural environments. It is now processing thousands of manufactured urgency signals every hour. We are trying to process an infinite world through a biological bottleneck. The inability to focus at 5 p.m. is a predictable system failure, not a collapse in personal willpower. To understand why this happens, we look here. This scan highlights the prefrontal cortex, the neural center for planning, reasoning, and impulse control. Behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman and subsequent researchers have demonstrated that this executive command center relies on a heavily constrained resource. Every choice draws power from this exact location. Deciding what to wear, crafting an email response, or resisting a distraction physically depletes the system. As the gauge drops, the brain defaults to the path of least resistance, leading to impulsive actions or decision paralysis. When this biological hardware runs out of glucose and metabolic energy, executive function fails. You cannot demand strict focus from a system that has nothing left to give. Marcus Aurelius governed a Roman Empire during plague, treason, and border wars. Every directive he issued carried immense, often fatal consequences. Yet, while he managed the deployment of legions across chaotic battlefields, we often find ourselves paralyzed by overflowing inboxes and digital calendars. His private journals, known as the Meditations, record a very specific practice. He was engineering a cognitive survival strategy, a method to insulate his judgment from the staggering weight of his daily obligations. The Stoics lived 2 millennia before the invention of the fMRI. They knew nothing about metabolic depletion or the prefrontal cortex, but by closely observing human behavior, they mapped the exact points where the mind breaks down under pressure. They built behavioral habits to prevent those breakdowns. Applying Stoic philosophy today operates entirely outside of ancient religion. It functions as a highly efficient software patch written specifically to bypass the hardware limitations of our neurobiology. The Roman philosopher Seneca advocated for severe intentional simplicity. He actively eliminated non-essential choices from his daily routine. Modern high-stakes environments rely on this exact architecture of elimination. Operating rooms are rigidly standardized. A surgeon does not decide where a scalpel is placed or what lighting is used. Military commanders implement precise operational routines. They strip away low-level logistical choices before a briefing even begins. When a behavior becomes an automatic routine, the brain shifts the processing workload. The active load leaves the prefrontal cortex and routes into the basal ganglia, a deep brain structure responsible for habits. This transfer drastically drops glucose consumption, requiring a fraction of metabolic energy. Strict daily routines do not restrict freedom. They are a biological defense mechanism constructed to protect executive function for decisions that carry actual weight. The external world is only half the equation. Our internal processing, specifically stress and emotional reactivity, drains the brain at a much faster rate. Ruminating on an unchangeable past event, or stressing over an unpredictable future, floods the brain with cortisol. This hijacks working memory and spikes cognitive load, leaving little room for rational thought. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus formulated the dichotomy of control. This is the practice of ruthlessly dividing the world into 2 categories, what you can influence and what you cannot. We can observe this as a literal cognitive filter. By refusing to engage with external events beyond our influence, we block useless data. Practicing acceptance stops a biological drain. It immediately halts the metabolic cost of anxiety and secures that mental capacity for the present moment. The physiological demands of a Roman command tent map directly to the pressures of a modern corporate boardroom. The variables change, but the cognitive stakes remain identical. Popular culture often portrays Stoicism as emotional suppression, treating the practitioner like a cold, unfeeling robot. The texts themselves reveal something entirely different. Stoicism is a framework for aggressive energy conservation. Focus is treated as a finite, highly valuable currency. By automating the trivial and filtering out the uncontrollable, you stop the steady leak of mental energy. That saved capacity becomes a measurable dividend, available for deep work, leadership, and precise rational thinking. Human focus operates within the strict physical boundaries of our biology. In an economy explicitly designed to harvest your attention, relying on sheer effort to maintain concentration is a mathematical loss. The inputs will always outnumber your metabolic resources. Mastering your attention requires building a defensive system for your mind. True clarity comes from protecting the battery before the real work even begins.